Perfect timing. So good morning. Welcome to our October information session for the Tribal Resilience Learning Network on Igiugig monitoring planning and Iliamna Lake seal research, which is very, very, very exciting. I'm very excited for the session today. I think it's going to be a good one. Just some Zoom reminders as we start. If you're calling in, please mute your phone. Because it's being recorded, we like to keep the audio nice and clean for people that watch later. We'll be having a Q&A after where you can ask questions for our presenters and reflect. And you can always ask your questions in real time in the chat and have any comments as well. And if you don't have a dedicated mute button, pressing *6 should be able to mute your phone. And if you are using your computer audio, again, we try and have all participants muted. You can also enter your questions in the chat, as I said, and we'll read them aloud at the end. And this recording, along with all of our other information sessions, will be on our Tribal Resilience Learning Network website. So in case we reference back to some of our older ones, you're welcome to go and watch those at any point. And for those of you that can access the chat, we invite you to chime in, introduce yourself, your name, where you're from, maybe where you're calling in from today, and one of your favorite things about transitioning into winter. My name is Megan Pitas. I am the program coordinator for the Alaska Climate Adaptation Science Center. I also help coordinate a few of these Tribal Resilience Learning Network information sessions. I'm calling in from Igiararmiut in Igyararmiut, and I was born and raised on Piscataway land, also known as rural Maryland. And I'm very excited to meet you all today. One of my favorite things about early winter is really just snuggling up with a good book and a cup of coffee and just taking like 45 minutes of slow morning in the morning, whether or not I have the time to do that. It's one of my favorites. All right. So as we get started today, we like to acknowledge that everywhere we work and live and play is Indigenous land. And this is just a few of the different places around the state that our team is based on. The Trothiada campus at UAF was gifted its name by Chief Peter John from Minto, pictured down here. A number of our team is also on Dunedin, like yours truly, and as well as Quinnahock and Shaktoolik as well. And it's just really important to think about place, especially in our session today, as something that's really important to one of the guiding principles as we're doing this work. And I also like to show you a number of our smiling faces from our team, because nothing we do is in isolation. It is part of a broader network of people all doing this work and living and learning from one another today and for a bunch of different days. And with that, I'll invite Jolene to actually introduce herself as one of our newest team members to you all. And pop in and say hi really quick, and then we'll get to our guest speakers.
Hello, good morning, everybody. My name is Jolene Olay. I'm from Shaktoolik, Alaska. I just became a new assistant climate resilience liaison for the Native Village. Not the Native Village, but the the Native American Fish and Wildlife Society. Before this, I was working with our tribe.
So checking out.
Happy to meet you all. Is that good? Good.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Jolene. Appreciate you taking the time to introduce yourself. Yeah, I know a number of you are very familiar with the Tribal Resilience Learning Network and join these sessions pretty regularly, but I also like to introduce you to everybody that's coming on board to help out. And one thing I also like to mention is the Tribal Resilience Learning Network. This is just one of our systems of support. We also provide pretty regular trainings. We're available for technical assistance for anybody that's looking at writing grants for climate adaptation initiatives. We also have our Tribal Resilience e-bulletin and listserv in case you're interested in learning more about funding opportunities, resources in climate adaptation, meeting more of our team and saying hi, And again, these information sessions themselves are held pretty much year round, except for in the summer when we pause for other activities for more fun. Alrighty, and with that, I would like to welcome our amazing guest speakers and guest presenters today. What's interesting about these sessions is that sometimes we get a lot of friends that we interact with pretty regularly, which is very exciting when that happens because the circles kind of align in different ways. And these people are amazing, and I won't do their bios justice, so I'll have them introduce themselves here. Mary, would you like to start with your introduction?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Welcome, and Goyana, thank you for joining. My name is Mary Hostetter. I'm Yupik of Southwest Alaska. I grew up on Nunbuckbuck or Nilavana, which is also known as Lake Iliamna, and the lake that we're going to be talking today primarily about. I work as a tribal steward in our tribal stewardship office, which was created in the last 2 years to really identify areas where our community could strengthen our sovereignty, really move forward in how we care for our lands, our waters, our skies, and our relatives. We're really, I feel very humbled to be able to work in this space because our relationships, as Megan was stating earlier, whether it's with people or our land, are so incredibly important. And how can we cultivate deeper relationships with care for that which sustains us, which is our great Mother Earth, whether it's our salmon that we receive in the summer times that feed our bellies in the winter, or it's the clothing that we're wearing, whether that comes from natural sources like wool or giviots, or even the oil that comes from thousands and millions of years ago ancestors. Everything that sustains us is part of Mother Earth. So just really caring for her as much as we can. I'll let Bill introduce himself, and then I think Megan, Donna will be going first, and then we'll follow up with our presentation.
Thanks, Mary. It's Bill Kane. Definitely recognize a lot of names and faces on the call here, so it's wonderful to be among so many folks that we already know pretty well. But my name is Bill. I'm originally from Anishinaabe and Dakota homelands, also known as Minnesota now. I moved up to Alaska about 10 years ago, chasing work in biology, and met Mary shortly thereafter, and also found employment with various agencies and research institutions, largely in fisheries biology. Then about 3 or 4 years ago, started down the trail that we're on here in the Tribal Stewardship Department up at Igiugig Village. And Mary and I are we spend most of our time focused on this broader concept of establishing a regional Indigenous Guardians Network in Bristol Bay, of which seal monitoring is a component of. And so we're really focused right now on kind of the promotional dynamics of what Guardians are, what's possible, emulating what's occurring in Canada with their Indigenous Guardians networks. And we spend a lot of time developing and maybe liaising with various developing relationships and liaising with various agencies and research institutions, nonprofits, to ensure that we can build kind of the most effective foundation for a Guardians network, when amplifying existing initiatives, reviving dormant ones, and hopefully collaborating on new ones without being duplicative. Thanks.
Donna, would you like to go next for your intro?
Sure. Do you want me to go ahead and share my screens and move into that at the same time?
Yeah. That sounds great. Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Nice to be here. I am happy to be joining you from Fairbanks, where I am really grateful to be a guest on the homelands of the Lower Tanana Dene people. And I'm research faculty at the International Arctic Research Center at UAF. My focus is on marine ecology, particularly how marine mammals are responding to environmental change. But increasingly over the past 5 years or so, that work has been done in partnership with coastal Indigenous communities who, as you've already heard, are part of and rely on this functioning ecosystem as just an integral part of the way of life, culture, food security, and spiritual aspects. My current work and research are really born out of a deep passion that I have for the wildlife and people and places of Alaska, and that was in part of just growing up. So I grew up on what is now called Anchorage on Dena'ina lands, and so have been a white settler in Alaska for all of my life. Okay, so I'm super excited to share a little bit about some of the history of the work that I've been involved in with Iliamna Lake harbor seals, and so I'll sort of use that to set the stage today. So we're going to take a journey to Southwest Alaska to Iliamna Lake. This is the largest freshwater lake in Alaska. It drains to the southwest into Bristol Bay through the Igiugig River. And if we zoom in a little bit more, you can see the Igiugig River on the bottom left there. So Iliamna Lake is extending over a really large region. It includes Yupik and Dena'ina homelands and several Alaska Native villages. And I'm excited for Mary and Bill to tell you a little bit more about that cultural context and history. Iliamna Lake is also home to a really unique population of harbor seals. Of course, Indigenous knowledge indicates that seals have been present in Iliamna Lake for centuries. And the earliest written records date back over 200 years to some of the first Russian explorers. If we zoom in a little bit to the eastern end of the lake, this is where the seals predominantly seem to be found. And I think that's in relation to a number of relatively isolated islands in the eastern end of the lake. Those islands have spits and other features where seals frequently haul out and rest. But there are other areas, including some of the river systems, that seals are observed. And so the pins on this map are showing locations that the National Marine Fisheries Service, or NOAA Fisheries, has observed Iliamna seals during aerial surveys in past decades. And the green pins are the sites where they have seen the largest numbers of seals. And hopefully you can see my my mouse here. So you'll see a lot of pictures from Seal Island, or what I call Seal Island, I should say. And so this picture on the bottom left is from Seal Island as well. Okay, so what makes Iliamna seals unique? And I think that there's a lot of different things that we could list out. In particular, from a scientific standpoint, they are one of 5 populations of seals, just any seals, worldwide that reside year-round in freshwater. And if we're specifically talking about harbor seals, there is only one other known population that resides year-round in freshwater, which is in northern Quebec on the Ingava Peninsula. And that population of harbor seals has actually been identified as a subspecies of harbor seals. So that's really unique in itself. And then when you think about, well, how do these seals make a living, particularly in the winter? Historically, Iliamna Lake has frozen over, and these are air-breathing mammals, right? So they need to come to the surface to breathe. And so that's a pretty unique, we don't know a lot scientifically about how their winter ecology, but just even knowing that the lake is freezing over, it makes them unique. The current estimate from NOAA Fisheries is about 400 seals in the lake, and that is based on data from aerial surveys, again, that was conducted from 2008 to 2013. So there are some questions about what is the current population size, since that has not been surveyed in more recent years, and I think this would be an area for a lot of interesting discussion. And so, because of this sort of unique context of Iliamna seals, there are also questions about, do they have unique diets or morphology, or even genetic differentiation from the marine harbor seal populations. And so that sort of sets the stage for telling you a little story about some of my training and history of how I've grown an interest in Iliamna harbor seals. And that dates back to when I was actually an undergraduate student at the University of Washington. I took a field course with the Alaska Salmon Program, or also known as FRI, or the Fisheries Research Institute in the region. And so I'm going to date myself here. That was way back in 2001. And I was part of this field course that involved going to a field camp, which was at Porcupine Island, which is where this picture was taken, at the east end of Iliamna Lake. This was our class. And we had to do an independent research project, a capstone project. And of course, the class was focused on salmon, but I was really interested in these like weird harbor seals and doing something different. And so at the time, there was very little scientific information available on Iliamna seals. And so tried to pursue a research project on them. And so as part of my undergraduate research, I went out to some of these islands and collected scats, and then used those scats, cleaned them out, and you can identify the bones and other hard parts from fish or other prey items that were consumed by the seals. And so this helped address questions about, well, what's the diet of these seals? And so what we found was that, we collected scats at the time when sockeye or red salmon were very abundant. And so perhaps not so surprising that sockeye and red salmon were the predominant prey item for Iliamna seals at that time. But we did find other freshwater resident fish species in their scats that were representative of their diet as well. And so, they're eating trout and lamprey and smelt. And so some of these other resident fishes that are presumably sustaining Iliamna seals when sockeye salmon are not super abundant. So let's fast forward to 2015. I was then a graduate student that was working on my PhD on something totally different, but I had the opportunity to return to Iliamna Lake. And so my husband, Peter Wesley, he's also faculty here at UAF in fisheries. He had a research project and was going to go out to Iliamna Lake. And so there was this opportunity to join him and go back. And we ended up actually taking our son, who was 5 years old at the time. So you can see them here. This is, again, what I'm calling Seal Island. There are some seals hauled out way at the end of the spit here. So they look like little dots, but we're quite a distance from them. And so before going back to Iliamna Lake in 2015, I had some conversations with colleagues at the NOAA Fisheries in Seattle, and considered, well, would this be an opportunity to collect some additional samples on Iliamna seals? And we talked about, well, what sort of information needs are there? And that we sort of circled back to particularly trying to understand some of the genetics of these seals. And so there had been a handful of genetic studies or genetic samples available from harvested seals in the region, but not enough that there was statistical power to describe the genetics of Iliamna seals. And so we considered at the time, well, would it be useful to try to sample the scats of Iliamna seals to collect fecal DNA? And so these pictures are sampling at various sites in the lake in both 2015 and we went back in 2017. I just love this picture because you can see my little son, who's now 14. He was helping find the seal scats. So he was running around on the islands and saying, hey, Mom, here's one. And so we were sampling these scats to try to see if we could collect fecal DNA. And so now here we are almost a decade later, and finally in a position to share the results of the samples that we were collecting. So this paper just came out a couple of weeks ago, and so, well timed for sharing out here. Working with the geneticists, we were indeed able to show that sampling the scats, we could get viable fecal DNA. And then that was used to bolster the statistical power and sample sizes to compare the genetics of Iliamna seals across populations across the Pacific. And so I'm going to emphasize the key take home here is that Iliamna seals are particularly unique. So the seals in Iliamna Lake are genetically different, very genetically different from those in nearby marine areas, including Bristol Bay, so the closest populations through the Igiugig River, but also 7 other populations from across the Pacific, ranging from Japan to California. So that's indicating limited or no interbreeding with marine populations. So let me just walk you through this figure a little bit. So here in part A, this is showing mitochondrial DNA haplotypes, as well as nuclear and microsatellite DNA in part B here. And then as we move into part C, these are summary plots of population clusters for Iliamna Lake is circled in the middle here. And I think just visually you can see that the blue color for Iliamna compared to all other populations shows how distinct Iliamna is. And in terms of the genetics results, it's very striking. I encourage you to check out this paper if you're interested in the details on the genetics data and the results, or to reach out to the senior author on the paper and lead geneticist, Dr. Greg O'Corey-Crow, if you want a few more details on the genetic analysis. So I'm going to wrap up here, but I just wanted to add that there could also be some interesting potential research opportunities with other data that I've collected and haven't had time to go. I don't have the time or capacity in my current position to really dig into right now, but I collected some data on using time-lapse camera images that could be used to look at haul-out patterns. I even had a very ambitious high school student, Catherine Koo, who did some initial analysis on this data, and she presented a poster at the Alaska Marine Science Symposium a couple years ago. This kind of data might be really useful for understanding when seals are most likely to be hauled out, and that's important for things like aerial surveys, so to assess the population size of the population through NOAA fisheries, for example. So they want to fly over and count seals at the optimal time of day or in conditions when seals are most likely to be hauled out. And this data could be used to compare if that's different than the marine populations that they are currently that's how they currently set up their aerial surveys. So I think this could be a really great student project or a project if a tribe wanted to take over and collaborate on some of these data. But so really, I want to finish by saying that there's a need for collaboration with the communities and knowledge holders of the region. The work that I've done on Iliamna seals was done decades ago. And at the time, I didn't appreciate that I was treading on the homelands of some of Alaska's first peoples, and they have the deep connections to this lake ecosystem and these seals. And I wasn't trained in my, graduate work or undergraduate work on how to conduct research with Alaska Native communities. So I'm including this picture here from some of my more recent research, in this case on ring seals, to illustrate that since then, the research approaches and collaborations that I pursue really are meant to support ethical and equitable research with Indigenous Alaskans. And so that's why I'm super excited to share this webinar with the Igiugig Village Council and to learn about their Indigenous-led monitoring programs. And I just will end by saying that for any research on Iliamna seals that I am part of going forward, I really am committed to doing so in collaboration with the local tribes and in service of their goals and objectives. So Koyana, and here's my email address, and I'm happy to take questions after we hear from Bill and Mary, I think, right? Yeah, okay, so I'll stop sharing. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Donna. Yeah, it was really great to see that progression and see all of the images of you doing this work over the years and how it's kind of shaped the work that you do now. I appreciate it. And with that, I think we're handing off to Mary. Go ahead.
Yeah, Goyana, Donna, for sharing that. And I want to maybe just say in this space that we're all learning and we're all trying to do the best that we can with what has been given to us and what has been uplifted. And when we think about our tribal or Indigenous inclusion in these things, we can start building that future and creating that future, when before there were a lot of different variables that went into tribal inclusion. And so just learning how we can work together is really important. I would like to take a moment to say Goya Nakba to our locals who are joining this call today. There are a handful of people across the lake who have ties or are actually living in their community. So thank you for joining to learn about this. I do want to also say that Igyugig is not in this space leading the seal research as a single community. We really want to build this out across the region with the different relationships that we have been cultivating with different research or federal entities. And this was born out of really Bill and I moving back to Igyugig to build out what we see as the Indigenous Guardians program, as Bill alluded to, that has been inspired by thriving programs in Canada. That really uplifts and recognizes that as the original land relationship experiencers in this region, that we have a lot of really deep knowledge about our home, about our relatives, and we have an opportunity to really build a platform for how we engage with different research and federal and state organizations. So this has been, this is going to be talking about a couple different things in parallel veins. Yes, the seals, the Lake Iliamna seals, land relationship visioning and planning, but also the stewardship efforts that we see as we move toward the future. Bill, if there's anything ever too that you'd like to include in here, definitely unmute and I'll try to pay attention to that. Some of this is going to be a little bit repeated from what you've seen in Donna's slides. I just wanted to introduce you to some of the seals that we know, or rather that Brendan Jensen in Pedro Bay knows and shares some photos here. We really appreciate seeing all of Brendan's updates on social media of the different seal interactions and just seeing how incredibly diverse these seals are. So this is up in Pedro Bay, around Pedro Bay, and Brandon Jensen, who's on the call, is the person who shared this photo with us. Just going to give you a brief snapshot of exactly where we're talking about. A lot of us probably know, but here is Lake Iliamna. I find it really helpful to go from the world sometimes downward into Lake Iliamna because it helps really orient ourselves. We're going to go here. So here are the Lake Iliamna communities. I've added Popanoy here. There's a small settlement of folks who live in this area: Kakanok, Igyugig, Iliamna, and New Halen, and Pedro Bay. Pile Bay could have been included here. They've got maybe a seasonal presence there. And as Donna was saying earlier, a lot of the seals happen to be in the easternish end of the lake here. And that's not to say that we don't experience them here down on the western end of the lake. We've actually seen quite a few seals that have been hanging out near the Telerik Islands. That has been very cool. We saw 5 or 7 of them one time. That was just so incredible to see that many in this area because we don't typically see that. We might get 1 or 2 seals down here and they sometimes go downriver, but they don't typically hang out in Igyugig or in the lake around Igyugig. I wanted to show you this picture like this because this is 5.5. And we'll take out Popanoy because maybe they have like 6 people living there. There are 5 different communities who live on Lake Iliamna who are interested in and have lived in relationship with seals for time immemorial. And that means that we have a lot of really awesome information that we can collect and rather share if we are able to orient ourselves in a different facet of what information and data might be. Because as the original land relationship experiencers here, we're always observing, we're always taking note and noticing when our relatives might be doing poorly, noticing when they're experiencing some hardships, and we're adapting to that. So what is the data that we know that maybe we have been told isn't exactly Western science data, but that is data in and of itself? Locations of where seals hang out, like the Telerik Islands too, is one of those knowledge bases. But also, what do we know about the seals that maybe we haven't thought about or haven't been able to share in this space? So we're going to talk a tiny bit right now about land relationship planning that was originally inspired by the Igyararmiut. If there are any Yuxtun speakers on this call, I'm sorry because I know I butchered that. What that means is our sustainable futures, and it really takes into account climate change, research, and community involvement. When we look at those three different pillars of what our sustainable future looks like, to me, it's investing in community. It is offering training opportunities for our people to collect more Western science data, training opportunities to interact with federal agencies if that's something that you're interested in. I know that I've had to grow in that capacity. And sometimes it's really challenging to be feeling like you might be code switching between your community and a federal or research entity. And that's what we feel like we're bringing into this space right now, is how can we help other communities, if they're interested, interact in this world with the experiences that we have gained, which is why we're here now today with our ideas for monitoring collectively, collaboratively, and complement with an E, not an I, for all of the different efforts that are happening across our home, really. This is a drone picture that I took earlier in the season up at Lower Tulare. And so this is one of the relatives that our seals primarily live in relationship with, the sockeye salmon or sayak. When we think about our entire ecosystem, everything is so interconnected. You cannot take the seals away from the salmon or from the smelt or the whitefish without really taking a little pillar of their existence and how they live in relationship with the place. So we want to create a holistic idea of our monitoring program so that we might be able to really have a fuller size picture of what is happening in our spaces. And that's what our strengths are that we're bringing in. And in order to do that, community engagement is really important. So regional-based monitoring programs, which we're currently working with some of our communities around the lakes to create a regional monitoring program that includes sometimes the sockeye salmon, the seals, the caribou, in a couple different aspects. So what is important to our communities? And we've heard seals and salmon and caribou and moose, salmon berries. And these are as identified by our regional concerns. So it's really important that all of these plans are created with our community's concerns, that our community concerns are uplifted. Community involvement is just as important. When we include our local governments, local interests, and local entities, we're able to really create a holistic idea of every single concern that we have and think creatively with the hive mind to address those different concerns, all the while really uplifting our local and Indigenous knowledges. That's really important to me as we consider just how much depth we have of knowledge of our homes. This is taken by Bill a couple of winters ago, and I just love how incredibly dynamic the color of our lake is. It's so beautiful, and I'm sure it changes across our different locations too. So when we think about community monitoring, we're partnering with the Indigenous Sentinels Network to create monitoring programs and forms so that we might be able to house that data within our communities. You've probably heard of some of ISN's apps, Fish Map app, Skipper Science, Citizen Science, Sentinel Science. Those are all different that is the suite of applications that ISN hosts. ISN is out of the Aleut community of St. Paul, and is really considering what data sovereignty means for our communities. Data sovereignty of what kind of data should our communities hold, and how do they share that data? Typically what happens with data is that it's shared very broadly and widely without really thinking about the consequences of any kind of cultural sensitive data or relative sensitive data that we want to maintain the story of. ISN also offers different communication and training materials. They've also recently received a grant to train guardians. So when we think about what a seal monitoring program locally led in partnership with Donna or UAF and NOAA, we are thinking about how we might be able to do that using the Guardians platform that ISN is supporting, while also thinking about what are those different skills that our guardians will need as we look toward the future. So when we think about seal monitoring, we have a couple different things that we're going to be doing. Community interest. Are there interested communities across the lake? And I think that there are. Some of us are representing here Iliamna Lake and Bristol Bay. I don't think I saw Kakanok on here, but I know Kakanok has a lot going on too. So how can we support our communities to do that? Really by sharing the experiences that we've had, and the different relationship opportunities that we've been building is really important in that. I've said here, rebuilding capacity, because our communities have capacity and we have had capacity. I think in that there is a little bit of a key that turns into us believing that we can be in those spaces after being told for so long that we don't belong in these spaces. We absolutely do. And we want to find those solutions to be able to get us into those spaces on a more formally recognized space. I know that there are populations of researchers and federal and state entities that are uplifting this, but we really want to support our people to share their knowledge in meaningful ways because we need to. Our Mother Earth is in a space where she needs to hear from the people who live in the landscape, who live on the lands, who swim in the waters, who walk in the rivers. And that's my vision through Indigenous Guardians, is to be able to allow us that platform. Building relationships, whether it's with UAF or the Alaska Cask or with each other, our efforts to ensure that our relatives continue to be in this space, that we get to continue to live in relationship with our relatives, really relies on relationship building, because we can't do this alone. I really like the term Damumta, which is all of us in Sugpiaq. It does take all of us. And when we look toward the future, whether we're uplifting Indigenous guardians, whether we're uplifting our local knowledges and our Western science, not our holders, we're relationship building. And sometimes that means that hard truths are shared and that there might be uncomfortable and challenging conversations as we look toward the future, where we're creating a more just and equitable landscape for all. Monitoring. So how do we use the community interest, rebuilding capacity within communities, and our relationships that we're building to create a monitoring program? We're in that space now. How do we collectively come together as our communities to determine what is important to our communities and how we collect that data? And what kind of data can we collect that is meaningful both to us and to federal and research entities? But also, how do we make those different jobs approachable to our local residents? That's really important. Again, within that rebuilding capacity, offering training opportunities and investing in communities through workforce development. And then iteration. When I say that, iteration is you kind of revisit this monitoring plan, you revisit how you engage community. It is kind of also in here, I could have said /living documents. We always want everything that we're doing to be able to pivot at any time if we have overlooked something, if we have, realized, well, flying aerial surveys with a fixed wing aircraft is actually a lot more expensive than we had anticipated. We're going to explore drones as an opportunity to collect the hull out surveys. Really being careful about iterative approaches. So just the ability to pivot in that space. This is another picture I really appreciate it from Brandon. This seal is so interested, and I mean, they're so cute, right? I really like harbor seals and seals in general. It's really special when we get to see them down here on this end of the village, or end of the lake. So I really appreciate seeing them through these photos. So what are our next steps when we think about how Indigenous guardians and our sustainable futures might be able to come into play here. Land relationship visioning. So how do we live in good relationship with our lands and our waters and our relatives? So recently, we, as the Igiugig Village, in partnership with the Nature Conservancy, were awarded a NOAA Coastal Regional Resilience Challenge grant. And within that, we are allowed 2 different fellows. One of those fellows, we really want to be able to uplift in learning about seals and learning about our local Lake Iliamna seals. The other one is about smolt. I'll just put that in here right now. We are really interested in exploring reinstating the smolt out migration project that has been defunct for about 5-ish years. Just putting that out there for if anybody has general ideas and interest in that too. But we'll talk about the seals more specifically. How can we create and co-develop a monitoring plan that is responsive to all of our different needs? What's really important to me as we look toward the future is that if the seals are genetically distinct from our other seal relatives, how might potential federal regulation impact our relationship with the seals? So I want to ensure that we're able to maintain relationship with our seals as our ancestors have through harvesting and living in that relationship, because we know that we are not over harvesting. That's not what our people are about. So we're looking at different opportunities to be able to uplift that. Sorry, I just wanted to check the time. I only have a couple more slides. How do we uplift our local knowledge, our local capacity, and create this plan? Well, drones are an option. We have a couple different drone pilots across our communities, and we're only looking to support more. Also, for the locals on the call, if you're interested in flying a drone or learning how to do that, we're happy to support. Bill, may you put our tribal stewardship email in the chat? If you are interested, connect to our tribal stewardship department, and we're happy to help explore that opportunity with you. Donna mentioned scat samples and a potential for a student to be able to interact with the data that she has collected, but how can we also potentially collect more samples, whether it's scat or biological? Harvest samples. I would really love to connect with different programs across Alaska who have been doing harvest samples of their own seals so that we might be able to engage in that. And also compensating people for their time. That these are important bits of knowledge that we would love to know, and compensation is really important for us as well. Local knowledge interviews. If we have an interested person who wants to collect information about our verbal knowledge that has been passed on through time, how can we collect that in verbal interviews? And then how do we implement a pilot project? We recognize that this should be longer term and sustainable across the seasons, if that makes sense. Again, this is an iterative approach, and different training opportunities for those people who might be interested in collecting harvest samples or scat samples, and what they might be able to do with that data during the analysis phase. So if you're interested in helping build the foundation, we have this fellowship opportunity. It's a 2-year fellowship here in Alaska where you'll be primarily working with ourselves here in Igyugig and the Nature Conservancy, potentially a mentor in one of the other communities, Nuhalen Iliamna, Kakanok, or Pedro Bay, engaging with our local communities across Lake Iliamna. So how can we get all of our people interested in this from a local perspective and contribute to the conservation of a unique seal population? That's really incredible. It's awesome that our relatives are unique in the ways that they are, outside of simply them being incredible by themselves. So this is again a 2-year fellowship that will be hosted and paid for by NOAA. So if you're interested, please again get in touch with us. Share this with people who you think might be interested. We're looking to uplift local community knowledge holders if they are interested, or potentially a student in academia who might think that they're interested in moving on into other NOAA positions. Please get in touch with us. They'll put our email in the link, or our email in the chat, as well as the link to the Bristol Bay Guardians.com website, which is the Coastal Regional Resilience Challenge grant that we received through NOAA. Bill, do you want to add anything here?
Maybe just to further expound upon what the opportunity is before us with these fellowships and to further plug them. We're kind of anticipating them to be officially recruited for somewhere in the new year in 2025. But we've been able to really shape what these fellowship opportunities are and what we want to focus on within this particular dynamic associated with the funding that we have through NOAA. And so our hope really through both the SEAL fellowship and the smolt fellowship within the Lake Iliamna subregion here at Bristol Bay is for those fellows to be kind of dedicated for at least 2 years, with actually the opportunity to potentially extend into another 2-year cycle beyond that, to really build a foundation for these discrete community-based monitoring initiatives, one for reviving the smolt effort and one for further building out the seal effort in Lake Iliamna. So just wanted to plug those further and certainly encourage local participation. If anybody's interested, please reach out to Mary or I at that email.
Yeah, Guyana, Bill, for that. And I think I'm hopeful that this will play for you. This is another video by Brandon, and it's probably 15-ish seals that are just chilling, swimming around. The water is so clear, it's incredible. I wanted to share this with you. Again, our seal relatives are amazing, and we're just really grateful to be able to work together collaboratively in authentic relationship building to understand more about our seals. So Guyana, Chinan, Guyana, here are some of our partners who have been really beneficial in helping make this happen as we move toward creating the future that we see for our people. Yeah, we'll open it. I'll hand it back to Megan, but I think we're going to questions.
We are indeed. Guyana, Mary, Guyana, Bill. That was, oh my gosh, looking at the pictures and how clear the water is and watching the seals just play, it is really refreshing. It's just really warming my heart. But yeah, I guess to open it up to everybody else here, if anybody has any comments or reflections or kudos to any of the amazing speakers on the call.
Hi, this is Brenda Hill. I just wanted to thank you guys for this awesome presentation. And yeah, I'm definitely interested in helping. My dad and, well, I grew up, our fish camp is between Pedro Bay and Iliamna. So we're right in the Knutson Bay area. So I've grown up seeing seals in the area, and I'm just happy for this program and happy to learn more about it, but I have to go to lunch right now. And I wanted to thank you guys, and I'll be emailing one of the addresses available. Again, thank you.
Yeah, Guyana, Brenda, thank you for joining.
Enjoy lunch. Yeah, I really encourage others to ask a question and put it in the chat, but I have one for our speakers, if no one else does so far. I guess, what is one of the more surprising aspects? Could be in a good way, or it could be in a bad way of doing this work. What's something that surprised you when you're engaging in some of this?
I'm happy to chime in here. I think that maybe for me, for what it's worth, perhaps the most surprising facet of engaging in this work, since kind of going along this trail and starting with climate adaptation work within the region, and then kind of focusing on the broader Guardians initiative and maybe tuning in to a more holistic understanding of the existing monitoring efforts that have occurred and the historical monitoring efforts that have occurred within the Bristol Bay watersheds. is largely through the fact that despite that this ecosystem is singular in a worldwide context, and it provides the last stronghold for wild sockeye salmon populations throughout the world. There is surprisingly little data being collected, even baseline data, in longer term monitoring initiatives. And I know that there are definitely some programs that are collecting some really good data at maybe the geographical context. And a few of those individuals kind of responsible for holding that together are on the call here. And so I want to acknowledge that. But it has been, even in the time that we've been doing this work, it has been very surprising and pretty startling to see how many really important longer term monitoring initiatives like the smolt out migration monitoring has completely dried up. There's really not any data being collected on out migration of smolt, a critical life history phase of the sockeye salmon population in this ecosystem that hasn't been collected since 2019. And the data that has been collected from around 2014 onwards is in a little bit of question as to its viability. And that couples along with some of the spawning surveys that have dried up in recent years. Most of these are Alaska Department of Fish and Game or State of Alaska charter but all that to say, initially when we started to notice these, it was extremely disconcerting to see some of these monitoring opportunities kind of fade away. But we've certainly pivoted to see the opportunity that's before us now to rebuild those efforts, being more flexible in the approach to monitoring and investing in communities and community capacity first to revive these efforts. So I think that that's been the most surprising dynamic, at least from my perspective, in terms of maybe the Western scientific approach to see really just the full breadth of data that has been collected and a lot of the gaps that are still very much in existence in this ecosystem.
I'll just follow up with not maybe a surprise, but maybe just a follow up to what Bill was saying there in that space. When the state of Alaska isn't supporting things for probably budgetary reasons, which is highly unfortunate. We all know that our oil, which has supported our state, is experiencing fluctuations. Indigenous guardians and local capacity rebuilding really offer an opportunity for us to collect data that is really important to our entire state. It's not just here in Bristol Bay that this can be really important. It can be all across Alaska, whether we're looking at refuges, state parks. Our Indigenous peoples have a lot of really amazing knowledge about these locations of their homes. And when you invest in communities, you're only investing in authentic experiences about histories that are true and and genuine for the places that you're investing in. And we see Indigenous guardians as an opportunity to really uplift potential budgetary crises when we're focusing on Indigenous local communities. It takes me maybe an hour to get up to Gibraltar from here, and I can go on, in the summertime, this is a tributary that's really close near Kokonok. Maybe if I have Bill in the boat, an hour and a half. But we can make it there in an hour and a half, but one of our community liaisons lives in Kokonok. If they had to go to Gibraltar, it's 15 minutes. I'm bringing this up because if you are the state of Alaska or another research institution who has schedules and timelines that cannot deal with weather, that means that if you have 10 days in the community and 8 of those days just happen to be really crappy and you can't go out into the field, that means that your 8 to 10 days out in that community wasn't used as maybe you had expected it to be. But those communities and those people who live in those communities have the rest of that time that they can be able to uplift and advocate for going out to those different field sites on a much easier time frame. That was a little bit convoluted, and I know that we're at time, so just wanting to again say that when we support Indigenous communities and local communities in Indigenous guardians, offering training opportunities where the bird to stone ratio is great. We're creating workforce development opportunities. We're building relationships. We're collecting data that is important to everybody and not just one party. But to me, we're also allowing our people to stay at home if that's something that they want to do. That's really, really important to me, is that I know there are very few job opportunities in our communities, but how can we take that responsibility of ourselves and build a future where we are creating those opportunities for our people to stay in community, again, if that's what they want. So, Guyana.
You got lots of applause and heart emojis while you guys were talking. I just want you to know I really appreciate you all talking about this. And this is not the end. This is just one conversation among many, starting in the middle of a story. So you will. And I know that Bill and Mary, you guys put an email contact in the chat, but Donna, I don't know if you wanted to put an email for where folks can reach you or the lead author as well. And I just wanted to wrap up and say thank you again so much to all of our amazing speakers and to all of you for calling in today. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to some other opportunities to have more conversations in person that are coming up. One of which is Alaska BIA, Bureau of Indian Affairs Providers Conference that's happening in Anchorage. The other of which is AFE, Alaska Forum on the Environment, which is not till February, so you have time. But for anybody that's interested in putting in a session or you want to host something at the Alaska Forum on the Environment, that deadline is this Friday. So just something to bring up. The submission deadline, I think, is pretty straightforward, or the application. And here's our information if you want to contact us. And we just wanted to say a huge thank you, Koyana, to all of you for so much for calling in today as we're transitioning into some colder and more wintry months. And yeah, this has been amazing, and I really enjoyed looking at all the cute little seal faces.
Brandon took most of those photos, just so huge shout out to Brandon Jensen if he's still online for those amazing pictures.
Truly. Thank you so much, Brandon. It was really good to see. I can stay on for a couple more minutes if people have other questions, or I don't know if our speakers are available. Otherwise, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day and rest of your week.